this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Locked in monthly wireless plans were built for another era. Text Now is app first. Free talk and text, real 5G coverage, and service you switch up in an instant. Download Text Now and connect in minutes.
Other wireless carriers tell you when to pay. Text Now asks, what do you need? It's app-first phone service without commitments, credit checks, or carrier attitude. Built for people who stopped asking for permission. Download today.
When people turn to healthcare for weight loss, they're looking for real support. That's why more people are choosing OrderlyMeds.com. Orderly Meds connects you with real doctors and access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide. No guessing, just a more supportive experience. And all shipped directly to your door in discreet packaging. Do your research. Ask questions. Then visit OrderlyMeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. That's OrderlyMeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Moore. When I was little, I remember I attended, I attended what they used to call nursery school. I have a memory of that. And then I went to a church school for kindergarten. And after that, I went to public school, first grade. And my granny would take me to school, even in the first grade. I didn't ride the bus. I guess she felt like I was too young, and I probably would. I don't think I'd put my first grader on a bus nowadays. But you know, when I rode on a bus for the first time, probably when I was 8 or so, I really thought that I had arrived. It was this thrilling thing, you know, because, you're going to get on the bus, you're scared, but it's kind of cool. You know, you're riding with other kids. Maybe you're going down roads you've never seen before. And even though it's just from, your bus stop to school or vice versa, it was kind of a cool thing. And every day I remember getting off the bus, and some of you can identify with this, and having my little book bag in my hand and my lunch pail or my lunch box. I was a fan of Fantastic Four, so I had a Fantastic Four lunchbox. And walking down the gravel drive to our home. And I was a latchkey kid. I let myself in to fix me something to eat. And there was never, fear when I walked through the door. Never fear. I just knew that I had come home. Imagine, though, that you're 5 years old. 5. You've been at school. You take the bus home. And maybe you walk up to the door. Maybe the door that's normally unlocked because the neighborhood that you're in feels safe. You make entry. Your mama is always there, and you call out to her, but there's no answer, just echoes. You go door to door. And finally, you walk into your mama's bedroom, and there she is, laying on the bed, hands bound behind her back, and a ligature around her neck. And she is never, ever going to say, "Welcome home, baby. How was your day?" That'll never happen again. The case we're going to talk about today, that actually happened. And it is incredibly tragic. And what's even more tragic is that it has gone on for 52 years. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. How old were you when you first rode a bus, Dave? Did you ride it like you were older?
No. Yeah, because when I grew up in Southern California, where we had neighborhood schools, so I walked to school in kindergarten. But when I was in kindergarten, Joe, we did half day. You had the morning kids and the afternoon kids. Yeah. And so I would get home, I guess, 11:30, and then another set of kids would go in and do the afternoon session. But yeah, we had neighborhood things. I was like in junior high before I ever rode a school bus.
Yeah, I had the school I initially went to was kind of out in the country. And then we moved to town, and I did walk to school like in the 5th and the 6th grade, which again was kind of cool, because there's kids
right.
you would walk with.
Right.
But yeah, it's a different feeling. And boy, as a parent, that's one of those markers in parenthood where you're literally, kind of pushing your kid out the door.
Yeah.
And you're entrusting them, in the safe handling, somebody else is going to be taking care of them as they get onto this big yellow bus.
It's so funny because of the world we live in now versus the one you and I grew up in, because now I notice that in my neighborhood where we do have children, elementary, junior high, high school that do ride the bus from here. And, we used to, when we did ride the bus in junior high or high school, we all walked to the school bus stop, and for some it was a good bit of a little walk just to get to the school bus stop. Yeah. And but now you don't see any kids walking. You see them usually in my neighborhood anyway. They'll be sitting in a car with their mom, and then the bus will stop. They'll get out of the car and get out of the
car and go.
Yeah. But in this particular case, talking about a 5-year-old little boy, and that's the part that really is sticking out with everyone who reads this. It's not just you and me, thankfully, because if it was, Joe, I would be really worried about our world. I'm concerned, but there are enough people that saw this and went, what did this kid go through? Because his mom, when we're looking at Barbara Waldman's children, she had 3 kids. Now you've got them at 7, 6, and 5. And I was thinking about this, that maybe they had that split schedule going on in 1974, because 7, 6, and 5, and the 5-year-old is home first from the bus from kindergarten and finds Barbara. The other 2, Marla and Larry, come in later, and they don't have any recollection of seeing. By then, everything was shut down. But
Eric Waldman is the founder, I think.
Yeah, Eric Waldman. Yeah. And that's he said, that his memory from 5 years old on, Joe, of his mother is of finding her tied up with her hands behind her back, shot in the head.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that it was a lot worse in terms of what, because I can't imagine that now. I mean, really and truly, at our age now, I have never walked in on a scene like that. You have. We've talked about these scenes a lot, but can you imagine how does a child, how do they grow up and get past that? Because there's no book for that one.
I don't know, and I reflect back to a case I worked many, many years ago, and it was arguably one of the most haunting cases I have ever worked. And it was actually involving a kid who had been present at his dad's apartment. It was like his dad's weekend, and drug dealers came to his dad's apartment, and they made that kid stand next to his dad as his dad was down on his hands and knees, and they executed his daddy right in front of him. And that kid, when I got to the scene, there's this classic scene from the original Halloween movie. I think it's from the original Halloween movie where I can't recall, but when Michael Myers, the antagonist in this thing, they take the mask off this kid, and he's standing there with a knife in his hand. He's dressed up like a clown, and he had this vacant stare, just looked off into the distance. This case I'm talking about, this kid I think he was like 7 or 8, if I remember. And I remember seeing him at the scene and had his dad's blood on him. And I don't know, I've never been able to fathom how people bounce back from something like that. I have no idea. I don't know where you find the will to go on. I mean, when I don't know, maybe it's different when you're a child. I can't imagine that it is, but that's kind of seared into your brain. That's why it's so important, I think, for people, and I'm going to wax philosophical here for a second, so indulge me. Eric had no idea he's only 5.
Right.
But, the last time that's why, I never walk out the door now at this age, without, embracing my wife, hugging her and kissing her. It doesn't matter what the temper around the house might be or whatever. I'm not going to leave the house without having said something kind, and when I see my grandbabies, I have to hug them, have to love on them, before I send them out the door, because I just don't know. And in this world, it's so crazy. And this happens every day, brother. I mean, as you know, we cover it all the time. Mm-hmm. You never know where the terminus is, if you will. And it does happen. And unfortunately for Eric, this happened 52 years ago, Dave.
Yeah.
52 years ago. And he's been reliving this in his brain. And I still, I have memories of things from childhood. And I think that those things kind of morph, through time. I actually had a forensic psychologist, or she was a trauma specialist. I was speaking to her one time. She said that our brain layers on top of things. And so those memories, the memories become tamped down. But when you're traumatized, sometimes your brain has a way of softening things or changing things so that maybe it's not as horrible or not. I can't testify to that, because I remember things in my childhood that were pretty horrible, and I still remember them vividly. Right. But to see what Eric had witnessed all those years ago in Long Island, New York, coming home from school, getting off the bus and going into his house, and there's his mom there, and she's wrecked, man.
But then it's even worse, Joe. I mean, if you can get worse than the finding, okay, and we're going to share this with you now, because the reason we're talking about it is this case. Even though you had, I don't want to say fresh body, but you had a good timetable for when this murder occurred, because they know when all the children were at home and when Barbara was fine. And then they know when Eric got home from school, mid-morning, actually. And so the law enforcement knew we've got this very small, hour or two is not a lot of time.
No.
On January 11th, 1974, in this one neighborhood on Sally Lane in Oceanside, Long Island, we have a murder that took place. It's a violent murder, and maybe something that's been done before, because usually a criminal doesn't start at the top with murder. You work your way up to that usually. In this particular case, what we do know, though, is that Barbara Waldman, at 31 years old, was home alone. She is the mother of 3 children, as we mentioned earlier, 7, 6, and 5. And her husband is a dentist in town.
Dr. Gerald Waldman.
Yeah, Gerald Waldman. And that's your setting. So when Eric got home from school, and as you mentioned how the normal greeting would go, and that didn't take place, Eric goes up the stairs and finds his mother dead. Now, we know very little of what took place yet after that, because as the finder at 5, I'm sure he was protected by everyone involved, thankfully.
Yeah.
So we don't know a lot of what happened in those early moments, but we know that police were called. We don't know how. We don't know if Eric picked up the phone and called the operator or called. I don't know if you had 911 in 1974.
No, you would have had 0.
Yeah. And so, and very well, to be honest with you, children were a little different in 1974 than they are in 2026.
Oh, yeah.
And at 5, I don't know where he was coming from or what he was capable of, but I know this, Joe, that this man at 57 has lived with the last memory of his mother being like this, in this position. My memories of my mother when I was 5 are not like that.
No, they're not. And, that it's, I don't know, the one thing, you can use terms like bravery and heroic and resilience and all those sorts of things, but words fail in a circumstance like this. You never know how maybe Eric's life specifically, his siblings too, but Eric in particular, how his life was molded in the wake of this. What we do know is that for the remainder of his life that he has lived up to this point, and God bless him, it has in fact been shaped. It's been shaped by the absence of a mother, but also those things that he was forced to behold because of what a monster did to his mother.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Locked in monthly wireless plans were built for another era. Text Now is app first. Free talk and text, real 5G coverage, and service you switch up in an instant. Download Text Now and connect in minutes.
Other wireless carriers tell you when to pay. Text Now asks, what do you need? It's app-first phone service without commitments, credit checks, or carrier attitude. Built for people who stopped asking for permission. Download today.
When people turn to telehealth for weight loss, they're looking for real support. That's why more people are choosing OrderlyMeds.com. Orderly Meds connects you with real doctors and access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide. No guessing, just a more supportive experience, and all shipped directly to your door in discreet packaging. Do your research, ask questions, then visit OrderlyMeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. That's OrderlyMeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
My understanding, Dave, is that there were bindings that were used in this case. The way this thing has kind of described, this case itself, Barbara's hands were literally tied behind her back. And early on, the police had framed this case, obviously as a homicide, but had framed it in the sense that this was an execution-style homicide, and not only a homicide, Dave, but also a rape case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now,
and yeah, go ahead.
No, Joe, let me ask you, because we have the strangled with her own stockings.
Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Yeah.
Hands tied behind her back. She's gagged with her hands tied behind her back. And then she's shot in the head. So I'm not trying to picture this. I'm just trying to, get an idea, because
that's what we do.
As you come into this scene, Joe,
yeah,
the perp has just done the most horrific thing you can possibly do. And I'm picturing him shooting her in the back of the head, not looking at her face after everything he's done to her. Did he strangle her and then shoot her? Was she already dead when she was shot in the head? Or was she shot in the head and she had a garrote around her neck? I mean, what was going on with this?
Well, here's something, and many people don't think about this when you have a rape homicide like this. We're going to, in the morgue, and from a forensic pathology standpoint, trace evidence standpoint as well, we're going to try to assess any kind of trauma that she sustained below the waist, if you will. Okay. And you say, well, why is that important? Well, it's important, I think, because you can begin to understand the nature of the individual. Now, keep in mind, they did not have a suspect in this case 52 years ago. They had not had a suspect in this case that we knew of. But we'll get to that in just a second. Right. All right. Because there is one person that a shadow was cast over, unfortunately. One of the things that is done at autopsy and in the postmortem examination is that any kind of trauma in a sexual case, you want to assess as to whether or not that trauma is antemortem or postmortem. And that's a terrible thing to think about, but you have to think about those things as an investigator, because you're looking for what their motive was. We know that obviously restraint is in the mix here. Okay. So you want to try to decouple this individual from the victim from any opportunity to flee. So you want to get her to submit. It's a classic asymmetrical event where you've got a dominant individual that is going to attack. You're going to do an extensive rape kit on a victim like this, and looking for the type of trauma that she may have sustained. In addition to that, Dave, here's another thing that we do with these restraints that are being mentioned, and they've mentioned stockings a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of women wear stockings anymore. Remember, you used to go to the store and they would have legs, the pantyhose.
Oh yeah, and the eggs.
Yeah. And you don't,
right?
You don't see that very often anymore. But let's just making the assumption that these are pantyhose that are used. You're going to look for trauma on the wrist as well, Dave.
Okay.
Because people struggle, in the event. How extensive was this? Was there a retying of the ligatures? Because sometimes, or the restraints, because that does happen. I've had cases as well where if you have something around the neck that's being used as a ligature, I had one guy that I worked, I know I've mentioned it before, but just indulge me, where he was a serial perpetrator, where he would loosen the ligature and then tighten it down again. So you had multiple multiple furrows on the neck of a lot of these victims, because what they're doing is they're releasing and tightening, releasing and tightening, because that's part of their sadistic motivation, because literally they have the power of life and death at their fingertips, where they can allow you to breathe or not allow you to breathe. Wow. And not to mention anything else that's going on. There's pummeling, that takes place and you get an individual into in a position, an asymmetrical position where they can be dominated, and they're lying on the surface of, say, for instance, a mattress. They're face down, and you're attacking them like this. There's any number of areas of points of contact where you can evidence the kind of trauma and the progression of the trauma. And that's the big thing here, Dave, because it's very interesting that this individual had the ability to take life with a ligature. Also, this idea of people being gagged. You're trying to muffle sound, and there are a number of cases out there, Dave, where people have literally died as a result of having a gag in their mouth, where that item that is being used as the gag, say if it has like a balled up sock or something like that that's stuffed into the mouth, and then you tie a gag, you can have individuals that will get that item back in their throat and they'll choke to death on that. So you've got these multiple opportunities. It could be beating, it could be manual strangulation with the bare hands, it could be a ligature. But then the kind of coup de grace here is the fact that she shot. You've got kind of this triple whammy that's going on here. So what would be the individual's motivation for doing that? And they're hinting that this is an execution style murder. So anytime you think about execution, you're thinking about GSW to the back of the head. You've got the individuals in a submissive position. And that would mean if she is on a bed, she's lying on a bed, and she is in fact shot, then she's going to be face down, and this individual will be hovering over her, Dave. Would literally be hovering over her, maybe even on top of her at this point in time when she's in fact shot. So there's really a lot to kind of bear down on from an investigative standpoint. I don't think that there was anything actually taken from the house. This is not like a burglary gone wrong. I don't think it's a robbery scenario. I might be way off base on that. The police have not necessarily released that kind of information.
Actually, I was able to dig up some of that.
Yeah.
The actual timeline is shocking, Joe. The minute by minute of what, again, it's difficult to prove, but based on, and you've taught me to look at, when did she die?
Yeah.
How long had she been dead by the time they got there? And I was going to ask you this because how can you, as police officers arrive on the scene, do they immediately begin documenting what they see in the deceased individual so that it can help you try to figure out when the violence occurred?
Yeah, and this is actually a case that is got pretty tight. And you mentioned this earlier on. This is very perceptive on your part. This is kind of, and I'll use a modern term, this is tightly time-stamped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because we know, and the reason it is because you and I both have mamas, right?
Right.
So we know in order to get out the door during school year, all right, this would have been right after Christmas break, right?
Right. Yeah, January 11th.
Yeah, the kids are going back to school, or have gone back to school.
Here's your minute by minute, Joe, just so you know, okay? The police have it down to the two older children leave for school between 8:25 and 8:35 a.m. Kindergartner was already there. Eric was the first one out, the 5-year-old.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Eric was on a half day school. So he got home earlier in the day, where the older children got in at 3. He got in at 11:30. So here's what they came up with. By 8:40 a.m., Barbara Waldman is alone inside the house. They suspect she was doing normal things, maybe cleaning, preparing to run some errands. 8:45, a man is seen in the neighborhood. a man is seen moving through the neighborhood, walking in the area at 8:50 to 8:55 a.m. The suspect approaches the Waldman residence on Sally Lane, and investigators believe he was either attempting a burglary or opportunistically targeting the house after seeing Waldman alone. The reason I'm bringing this up, Joe, we've been doing the story about Nancy Guthrie and her kidnapping.
Yep.
And we had some suggestions that it was a burglary gone bad from somebody at some point, an expert. And it makes no sense there. This doesn't make sense either, because nothing was taken. And this individual is in and out in a hurry. But the intruder enters the house, likely through a drawer rather than smashing a window. They believe that at 9:01, between 9 a.m. and 9:01, Barbara Waldman became aware of this evil presence in her home. A confrontation occurs. Evidence suggests a struggle, indicating a violent struggle occurred. Waldman resisted. She was overpowered by her attacker by 9:03 to 9:06 a.m. He restrains her using stockings taken from the inside the home, binding her. 9:06 to 9:12 a.m. Waldman is sexually assaulted while bound. The attacker shoots her in the head at 9:12 to 9:14 a.m., somewhere in there where the shot kills her almost instantly. From 9:14 to 9:18, the attacker moves around the house briefly. Investigators believe he may have been checking for valuables or ensured that no one else was in the home.
Yep.
9:18 to 9:20, suspect leaves the residence. Between
quick.
9 o'clock to 9:18. And Eric, little 5-year-old Eric, gets home 11:30. Between 11:30 and noon is when that 5-year-old boy's life, the one he would have had, ended, and the one he has had for the last 52 years began. And the little 5-year-old, discovers his mother's body. And shortly after 12 noon, police arrive and begin the homicide investigation.
This smacks, Dave, of familiarity to me.
Yeah.
It does, because, this place has been characterized as a safe place. This is not, you don't have these kind of violent events that are occurring here. You've got a mother, you've got a nuclear family here,
Right.
with dad going off to a dental practice. He had to have left at some point in time, probably adjacent to when the older kids
Right.
were heading out, and after Eric had left, I would imagine, because with a dentist, you've got to roll to the office and get. I mean, you're gonna have tick tock.
Yeah.
You've got appointments. You got people that
Right.
are waiting, and they have a long day most of the time. And so he would have left there, and it would have been very easy for somebody to have watched the entire process of them coming and going, primarily going from a distance, and maybe had been watching them for some time, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
This was not
Wow.
something, I don't think, that maybe they just decided that day. This individual their gaze had fallen on this family probably sometime prior to. They would have to know when it was safe. Back during this point, during these days, back in the 70s, you had a lot of stay-at-home moms. The milkman still came around, delivered milk. People still had diaper services. Not that, her kids are all out of diapers, but you know what I'm saying? You still had
Right.
people that would come and go to the house. And the idea that, she's defenseless inside of the home, and this person who is an absolute savage based upon what he had perpetrated upon Eric's mama, evidence would indicate to me, at least, that he had been watching them for some time. And it would not surprise me in the least that he had probably been fantasizing about this, that he's got a streak within him that's very, very violent. It's sadistic. He has to have that sated in some way. I really wonder if this individual had perpetrated any other kind of events like this, because this is a really bold move right out of the gate, for somebody to take these kind of steps and visit this kind of horror on this family. But the thing about it is this. Back then, and certainly today, but everybody out there that perpetrates a crime thinks that they're going to get away with it. But the more personal the crime, the more violent the crime, the higher the probability that this individual and others like them are going to leave something behind. And guess what? He did.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Locked in monthly wireless plans were built for another era. Text Now is app first. Free talk and text, real 5G coverage, and service you switch up in an instant. Download Text Now and connect in minutes.
Other wireless carriers tell you when to pay. Text Now asks, what do you need? It's app-first phone service without commitments, credit checks, or carrier attitude. Built for people who stopped asking for permission. Download today.
Are you trying to get weight loss support through telehealth, but it feels overwhelming and rushed? Check out OrderlyMeds.com now. OrderlyMeds.com was built to be different. Here, you connect with real doctors who take the time to understand your goals, review your eligibility, and guide you through a plan that's right for you. Orderly Meds provides access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide, including both name brand options and personalized compound versions when appropriate. So you have choices backed by clinical oversight, not guesswork. It's a simpler, more supportive telehealth experience designed around people who want clarity, care, and confidence in their weight loss journey. And your medication is delivered directly to your home in discreet packaging, so your experience stays private from start to finish. Do your research, ask the right questions, then visit orderlymeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. Again, that's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Dave, they spent a lot of time working on this case, but to no end. And of course, it wasn't until years later that they could take these samples. Again, I know I beat this dead horse all the time, but whatever you do as a police officer or as a forensic technician many, many years ago echoes through time. The fact that they were able to collect sufficient amount of biological sample from this case really speaks to how thorough they were back then. Back then, we were doing rape kits. That was pretty standard, and did them pretty much the same way they're done now as far as on the collection end. Okay, nail scrapings, trimmings, just, and of course the swabs that we do. Back then, of course, we were looking for primarily secretors, any kind of blood typing that you could do that would link back to a specific person. Part of me wonders what else was retained in this case, because we had, we've got these bindings that were used. They certainly had a gag that we talked about, but over a period of time, Dave, stuff gets lost, stuff that, would tie back to an individual, specifically from a DNA standpoint. And fortunately, they were able to have enough of a robust sample where they could go back and do typing in this particular case, right?
The amazing part is that even though, and this is what always gets me, Joe, even though the investigators did the job, you mentioned how they worked the shoe leather to break down the timeline, getting it to an 18-minute window, Yeah. That's tight. And even though there was somebody, a stranger, quote unquote, who was seen in the neighborhood walking in the area, and they had they had a good description, but nothing came of any of that. And yet they being investigators collected everything they could, and then it was taken care of over time. It didn't just get tossed. They didn't look at it and go, well, we gave it our all. We did our best. Nothing came back. We've got other crimes we got to deal with. They had to have been very conscious of keeping all of the records and keeping the evidence stored properly so that when the time comes, and as it did, they would have proper evidence to present so that this work could be done. Is that a fair assessment of what took place?
Yeah, it is. And kudos to them, a tip of the cap, as they say in baseball, to the police and the forensics people that were involved in this case, the medical examiner back then that took it upon themselves to do such a thorough job. And look, you can do a great job, but it's a lot of it has to do with how well you preserve the evidence and hold on to it for a protracted period of time. We can go, we can knock ourselves out in collection and do all that stuff, but where the real tail of the tape is preservation. Okay. And that part for me is one of the more amazing things, when you see how well some of these items and these critical items were actually preserved. But Dave, they ran this as far as they could, but the New York State Police decided that along with the local prosecutor, that they're going to push this thing on out to, and they've partnered with Othram, our friends at Othram. They've partnered with them, pushed it out to them, and our friends David Middleman and Kristen Middleman out there in the Woodlands, Texas, and they got a hit on this case, Dave.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
To cut right to the chase, after 50 years, they finally found out that the suspect, after 50 years, the suspect was somebody who worked as a garbage man, worked in that neighborhood, lived less than a half mile away, a couple of blocks.
Yeah, just like 5 blocks or so.
Yeah.
Away from them.
Worked that neighborhood. He could have known. He knew exactly how much time he had to get in and out. And yet the investigation never, ever zeroed in on him. And they pointed out a couple of reasons for that. The lack of DNA technology in 1974 being a big one. But investigators said that, this is the person that they actually ended up arresting. He had no major criminal record.
No. How
often does the guy's name is Thomas Generazio. Mm-hmm. Generazio, okay? Thomas Generazio. And by the way, he's dead. And not by the gun, not by the sword. I believe cancer. He died in 2004.
This is like the second one we've worked or covered recently where the person had died prior to of cancer.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that this person got to live.
Yeah.
They got to live. And I got to be honest with you. I hope he lived in misery. I truly do. I hope that he looked over his shoulder every single waking moment of his life. Because, I think about Eric and his siblings and the hell that they have been subjected to these many years. That little boy that walked into that room that day back in 1974, that burden that he's had to bear.
Can I share something with you that Marla, Marla Waldman said, as children, we heard many times that people were suspicious of my father and that he may have had something to do with my mom's murder. This powerful social mark of disgrace was heavy and hurtful to our family. The victim's daughter, Marla Waldman, said her dad never ran from the rumors. He stood proud. He stood tall because he knew he didn't do it and was looking for justice, not just for his wife, but for his children.
Yep.
I cannot imagine the weight of the world this man had to have been feeling every day.
I can't either.
And then you find out it was somebody in your neighborhood pretty much that lived there the whole time, Joe. Yeah. And he was there. The only reason they didn't catch him is because he wasn't in any database. He had never really had any serious crimes. There's no need for his DNA to be in any database. That's why no matter when they ran it, Joe, this guy flew under the radar for 50 years.
50 years. And again, lived his life. But, I'm thankful that now, as we are speaking right now, that this case has, in fact, been resolved. And it's because of our friends at Othram, of course, taking up the mantle that the police had done so many years ago, that they preserved the evidence. They preserved enough of it to get it out to the Woodlands so that they could have a swing at this. And boy, did they knock it over the fence. 52 years later, they came to a conclusion. And, the beauty of this is that you hear us talking about this. You say you like true crime. You say that you want to help. For me, this is the best way to help. That any of us, that any kind of resource that you have, they're not asking for bazillions of dollars here. If you just got a couple of bucks to throw their way, if you will just visit their website, DNAsolves.com, go on there. It's actually broken down geographically. There are open cases that they're looking for contributions on, just a few bucks their way. And you never know. It could turn the tide in a case. There are people out there that don't have the benefit. There are bodies out there that don't have the benefit of some governmental agency kind of funding them, behind them. And Othram doesn't either. Othram works on donations. They work based upon who's going to step up to the plate and assist with cases. Look for something in your area. If there is a case that's unsolved in your state, look at it, see if it's something that you want to contribute to. And they would welcome all comers, I can tell you that. But now, as we, kind of shut the door on this case, prayers for the Waldman family. I hope that they do have some measure of peace, because, as you know, there is no such thing as closure. From my perspective, I hope that they do find some level of peace. There's never any justice, it seems, in this world, but maybe some peace. Maybe, finally, they can lay not only this to rest in their mind, but maybe they can find some quiet moments where they can reflect and think about happier times. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
Locked in monthly wireless plans were built for another era. Text Now is app first. Free talk and text, real 5G coverage, and service you switch up in an instant. Download Text Now and connect in minutes.
Other wireless carriers tell you when to pay. Text Now asks, what do you need? It's app-first phone service without commitments, credit checks, or carrier attitude. Built for people who stopped asking for permission. Download today.
When people turn to healthcare for weight loss, they're looking for real support. That's why more people are choosing OrderlyMeds.com. Orderly Meds connects you with real doctors and access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide. No guessing, just a more supportive experience. And all shipped directly to your door in discreet packaging. Do your research. Ask questions. Then visit OrderlyMeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. That's OrderlyMeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.